From the former lightweight champ Charles Oliveira getting stripped of his title, to the Chechen sensation Khamzat Chimaev causing a ruckus at UFC 279, these are the fights that were canceled at the weigh-ins. Do Bronx seriously messed up in a title fight. He had already defended his title against Dustin Poirier, so he was supposed to face Justin Gaethje next. But due to him being slightly over the weight limit, the UFC had to strip him of his title. The Brazilian did end up fighting the highlight at UFC 274, but only Gaethje was eligible to win the strap. Oliveira did win that match, but Islam Makhachev was next in line, waiting to tear away the belt from his grasp forever. I guess the UFC had enough of Oliveira playing with the scales. Do Bronx has been more consistent with missing weight than he is with his submissions. In his career, he's missed weight 5 times. That was kinda expected if you think about it, cause Oliveira started his career as a welterweight, and he fought as a 145-pounder in the UFC. That's a 25-pound difference, guys. Don't know what the guy was thinking. Fighting as a featherweight, the Brazilian had problems cutting weight almost always. The man even appeared 5 and 10 pounds over the weight limit, which resulted in the original fights getting scraped, and he had to compete at a catch weight. You all know how much Uncle Dana hates that. Anyway, once it was clear to him that he couldn't reliably make the weight at 145, he decided to move up a division and compete as a lightweight. This is where he found the most success in his career. This just shows how even the greatest champions have trouble with the grueling process of making weight. Take Alexa Grasso, for example, before she made it to the flyweight. In 2020, she was supposed to fight Claudia Gadelha at UFC 246, but the Mexican came to the scale at 121.5 pounds. That's a staggering 5.5 pounds over the strawweight limit. The Nevada State Athletic Commission had to get involved, and they canceled the fight. A few hours later, Grasso publicly apologized and announced that she was going to move up to flyweight. 115 was way off her natural weight. This caused many significant problems early in her career too. Grasso was supposed to fight Randa Marcos in 2017, but a bad weight cut resulted in a urinary tract infection for her. The doctors stopped her from cutting any more weight, and she had to fight Randa at a catch weight of 119 pounds. Ever since she has made the move up, Alexa's been doing pretty well. I mean, she's unbeaten in all of her 5 matches at 125. She looks a lot healthy. And there's obviously the fact that Grasso was able to take down the former queen, Valentina Shevchenko. Moving up a weight class was definitely the best thing she could have done for her career. And more athletes should follow her lead, because otherwise, they just risk depleting themselves. You see, guys, cutting weight is not easy by any means. In fact, fighters describe it as almost killing themselves, because they have to severely dehydrate themselves in order to make weight for their matches. The diet is obviously a part of it, but you can go off food for a few hours. The water is the real problem here. On top of that, they go and sit in the saunas and cover themselves with warm jackets just so they can sweat as much as possible to lose all that water weight. Plus, they stop taking any fluids, so their bodies go into survival mode. And the worst part is that they have to do most of the weight cutting a day before the final weigh-ins. That means that some guys lose about 15 to 20 pounds, if not more, in a 24-hour time period. And most fighters actually prefer this to competing at their natural weight class. That obviously has some risks with it, because if you're that drained, you're more susceptible to knockouts, and there's also a high chance of injuries, because the muscles can cramp up really easily as well. Sometimes things get so bad during the process that fighters don't even show up to the weigh-ins. The latest example is Rafael Estevam, who was scheduled to make his debut at UFC 288 against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. The Brazilian was pretty impressive on Dana White's Contender Series in September 2022 and was expected to continue his winning ways in the premier MMA promotion. Sadly, that wasn't the case, and he didn't even show up to the official ceremony. This is a huge blow to his career, because Dana just hates guys who don't show up. I'm not even sure if he's going to get booked for a fight again. This was pretty disappointing for Zhumagulov as well, because he was looking to snap a 3-fight skid against the young Brazilian. This is the second time Estevam's match has been canceled. You see, initially, he was supposed to fight Carlos Candelario in April, but the Cannon had to bow out of the match due to an injury. This kind of thing is pretty common in the UFC, because Pete Rodriguez also missed weight for UFC Charlotte. He was supposed to fight Nathan Levy in a lightweight bout, but the match was canceled due to weight management issues, according to the promotion. Levy was obviously not pleased with the situation, and he took to Twitter calling his opponent Fat Pete, because apparently he missed weight by a big margin. Natan was bummed out that he didn't have a chance to perform and earn a bonus. He also apologized to the fans and told them that he'd be at the event if anyone wanted to meet up with him. I can't be certain what caused him not to get into the proper weight for the fight, but it definitely would hurt his chances with the UFC going forward, because this is the second time he has done this in a month. Previously, Natan was supposed to fight Pete in April 2023, but that fight was also scrapped due to Dead Game's failure to make weight. As I mentioned, this kind of thing has been happening a lot recently, and UFC Vegas 72 was particularly a disaster. Irina Alekseeva missed weight by 4 pounds. That's definitely not a good look, especially if it's your debut in the UFC. She weighed in at 140 pounds as a bantamweight, but her opponent Stephanie Egger successfully made the weight. The two women were allowed to fight at a catchweight of 140 pounds, but the Russian Ronda had to forfeit 30% of her purse to Stephanie. Alekseeva successfully won her match by a knee bar in the first round. It was kinda surprising that the Russian missed weight by such a big margin, because she used to compete as a flyweight before coming to the UFC. Later, Irina revealed that some kinda infection caused her to get sick. She was throwing up, and the people over at the UFC's Performance Institute advised her from cutting any more weight. The Russian Ronda still managed to show up on the night, and she made history by becoming only the 4th woman in UFC's history by executing a submission via knee bar. Alekseeva wasn't the only one who had problems on the scales that night. Hayley Cowan also failed to meet the bantamweight limit, as she came in at 137.5 pounds. Her opponent, Jamie Lynn Horth, had no troubles on the other hand. The match was the UFC debut for both of these ladies, and the Canadian turned up as a much better fighter in the octagon, as she secured a unanimous win over her opponent. Cowan is another one of those newcomers who won their spot on Dana White's Contender Series, but she has had troubles ever since she got that contract. Hayley's first 2 bookings were canceled. She was supposed to fight Aylin Perez at UFC Vegas 70 in February 2023, but had to bow out due to an illness. Then Cowan was booked against Tamiris Vidal at UFC San Antonio in March, but this time Vidal pulled out of the fight because of an injury. The debutante would have expected things to go smoother this time, but she lost 20% of her purse because of a bad weight cut, along with the fight. To be fair, this was her first fight on the big stage, so nerves are also a big factor coming into it, but isn't excusable when you've been at it for some time, like some of the staple names in MMA. Remember the Boers at UFC 279? He was scheduled to fight the legendary Nate Diaz at welterweight, but the match was canceled when Khamzat showed up a whopping 7.4 pounds over the limit. To make matters worse for himself, he didn't seem sorry or disappointed at all. In fact, he was laughing it off as if it were nothing, and when the crowd booed him, Chimaev just flipped them off. Nate went on to fight Tony Ferguson in the main event, and Khamzat fought Kevin Holland at a catchweight of 180 pounds. The Boers managed to win his fight convincingly with a first-round submission, but Dana was really ticked off by what happened at the event. You see, guys, 3 out of the 5 fights on the main card were at catchweight, with 3 more of them on the prelims. The event was pretty much a disaster, so can you really blame the boss for being in a foul mood? So from the Chechen sensation, Khamzat Chimaev causing a ruckus at UFC 279 to the former lightweight champ Charles Oliveira getting stripped of his title. These were the fights that were canceled at the weigh-ins.